Okay, that's then I think when it's live in the group, I think we can start. So I don't know whoever is going to listen to it today. So welcome to the second part of my talk about, a brief history of the world. Last time, I don't know if every one of you listened to it, just sum it up. I explained a little bit what was the scenery before the fall of man and woman, of Adam and Eve, of humanity, and what were the lies, the snares that the serpent, so this life-threatened danger, told us, and that the first original sin of all humanity together is the mistrust towards God. And now I said already at the end of the last talk that today I want to go further to the original sin, particularly for men and for women, especially because John Paul II lights it a little bit out that there are two specificalities of the sin related to a woman and a sin related to the man, which now in our time as the historical man, it is in fact one of the main problems that we cope today in everyday life due to this effects of the original sin in our daily life. So first, I want to come to the woman. As I'm a woman, it's easier for me, of course. And I'm going to talk about the original sin of man. And I think this affects a lot also the relationship between men and women in friendships and in families and in marriages. And also, of course, towards children and parents and so on. All those, they all come together, and it's a little bit, you can in a way reduce it to some aspects, let's say principles that are there that we have to cope with due to the original sin, the effect of the original sin on the woman and on the man. So first I want to come to the woman. What happened? So Eve was there at the, and there was this serpent, which is a symbol for a life-threatening danger. What is the first thing that Eve does? She starts a dialogue, and that's the main point I want to make at this point, is that it is a typical thing for us women in our behavior that when we don't feel at ease or threatened, that we start a dialogue. So we have, those are the psychologists that say, okay, women's brain, man's brain, and so on. But one thing is that we women tend to, we have this tendency to have a always total inner dialogue with anything or anyone, with ourselves, but maybe also and with the outside one. So it's no secret that we women have difficulties at not thinking. If we women get to a point where we stop thinking, then we are overly stressed, and this is absolutely abnormal. I mean, nevertheless, you can learn this in a way, but usually when a woman is overly stressed and even says, I cannot think anymore, that's really a moment where she's absolutely exhausted, because this is not the normal behavior of a woman, inside behavior. So yeah, so we want to, the problem is not in fact that she starts the dialogue and that she starts to analyze the problem and tries to analyze it from every part of every angle, because this is what we women tend to do. We have a problem and we start observing it through this dialogue. We try to put it in every way, every angle, how to solve this. What could this mean? Before we want to solve it, we first want to understand it. That's typical for us women. We want to understand it before we think about a solution, or might even not think about a solution. So sometimes we are very well at ease in only just observing the problem and analyzing it. So this is what we love doing. It's hobby, like a hobby. It makes us joy analyzing things, and especially relationships. And the problem is not that he loves having this inner dialogue. The problem is not that he wants to analyze anything. The problem is the choice of the interlocutor. So, in fact, instead of entering into a dialogue with God after talking to the serpent, she took matters into her own hands, which means she had the wrong discussion partner, which was the serpent. And after this discussion, she didn't take a second partner, let's say, which could have been God, or even Adam, who stood beside her, but he didn't want to talk. And so she had this thing. So okay, now it is said so wonderfully. I will scroll down because I have this before me. And she saw. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. So what did she do? She took everything into her own hands. She took what she desired for. And that is, in fact, the first, it's the original sin of us women, is that we, instead of letting us be given what we want, that we tend to take it. So as another figure in the Bible that we have that contradicts to Eve in an interesting same atmosphere in a way, or different atmosphere, is the Virgin Mary. So, and what we see is that Mary, when she was in where the angel Gabriel came to her, and surely she also had this desire for the redemption of the world totally in her heart. And she, when the angel Gabriel came to her in order to tell her that she's going to be pregnant with the Son of God, she asks the angel Gabriel, how shall this be, as I'm a virgin, as I don't even think about engaging with a man, even though she had already Saint Joseph beside her. So this is very interesting, because first of all, it shows that she knew how babies were made. And the next thing is that it shows that she had no intent in taking it in her own hands. So she was, because the natural thing of, or thought of a woman would have been, okay, I will be pregnant with a baby, so I have a bridegroom, so probably we should interact together, in order to have a baby, which would be the natural thing. But the astonishing thing is, how shall this be, seeing I know no man, so I'm a virgin, in fact. So it's very interesting, because it shows that that Mary didn't take it in her own hands. Rather contrary, she asked how this shall be, and the wonderful thing that was that the Holy Spirit will come upon you. So wisdom lies in the Holy Spirit. So this was would have been surely something that even Eve would have had a chance to get the present for wisdom, because as it seems, Eve wanted to be wise, which is not a bad desire, not at all, not even in God's eyes. But how she wanted to become wise was the problem. Not the fact that she wanted to become wise. So I'm sure that in a way, it would have been open for Eve to receive the Holy Spirit in order to become wise, instead of taking fruit of knowledge of good and evil. So, and the next very important thing is the role of Eve and Mary. Eve and Mary were both, when they came to the decision, out of sin. So it was, they were in the same status, let's say, when they came to this decision. The only difference was that Eve was in a perfect surrounding where there was, in fact, no evil in itself, not yet. And Mary was in a sinful surrounding. So the only difference was the environment. But the astonishing thing is that in a perfect environment, decided for sin. And Mary, in a totally sinful environment, decided for holiness. And I think this is an aspect that you have to be aware of, that it's no question of your environment whether we can become or not. It's a question of our decisions, how we approach the fulfillment of the desires that God laid into our hearts. So Mary, in a way, it would have been easy for her to distrust God, but she trusted totally. Whereas Eve, where it was, in effect, to be honest, for us seeing now the world, compared to what we can grasp from the scripture, it was a wonderful environment where it was very easy to trust God. So this was the women part. Now comes the male part, so the man. And and this is very interesting, because it's the fact that John Paul II said that the original sin of man was cowardice. Do you say cowardice or cowardice? How? Cowardice, the first one? I didn't. No? No, you have to put on the micro, otherwise I can't hear you, Ed.
It's cowardice.
Cowardice. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, so main thing, the original sin of man is cowardice. So, as I already told you last time, Saint John Paul II remarked that, or found it very remarkable that, in fact, in scripture it is said that Adam's right beside her all the time, where she had this dialogue, whereas a lot of theologians before John Paul II made this clear always said, yeah, where was Adam at that moment where Eve was engaged into this dialogue somewhere else, doing something else? No, he was right beside her, which means he saw life-threatening danger, which means he listened to the dialogue between Eve and the serpent, so with this life-threatening danger. And the very interesting thing is he said nothing, the original sin of man, saying things when it's not necessary, but when it's very necessary, being quiet. And this is really a problem. And this is because, especially in our times, but not only in our times, in every time, in fact, no matter what the spirit of the time is, it is a problem when men stay quiet in a moment where they should speak up. So he had received from God that even already before the creation of Eve, the order to guard the garden. And a part of the garden is also Eve, and for our present time, very important, the womb of Eve. But at the moment of the greatest danger, so for the serpent, is, as I mentioned already, is the symbol of greatest life-threatening danger. He apparently was full of fear and did nothing. So he didn't fulfill his mission. He didn't protect Eve. He didn't say no. And no is a very important word. And he was just shy, cowardly, no matter what he thought. So he did nothing. And that's the problem. And this is the original sin. So, when we say this omission of sin, it's also a big sin to not do something. So, and the thing is that this cowardice is something that is so hurtful for us women as well, especially in relationships. And I think this is a big problem, a very big problem in a lot of marriages, that and also in between parents, fathers to their children, that they say nothing when they should say something, or that they are cowardly, are there in the life-threatening danger or relationship-threatening danger, and instead of doing anything, they do nothing. So this is even harder, especially for women, than if they would say no, if they would reject, if they say harsh words, if they are weak, if they quarrel. That's not always fun, but there is already something, but not nothing. So, and now we have Jesus, the other figure who redeemed this original sin. And Jesus experienced fear as well, as we have now, especially in this time, when he's in the olive garden. He experienced fear more than anyone else. He even sweated blood out of fear. So, and in this blood-threatening fear, and I don't know if you ever sweated blood out of fear, probably not. So take the moment in your life where you feared the most and you were so anxious more than anything else. And then think about it, that the anxiety of Jesus was even much more. So then you can think about how much anxiety Jesus had to cope at that moment in the garden, in the olive garden, which was a redemption for man, for the original sin of cowardice of man. And so he was, although he had this big anxiety, he surrendered his will to the will of God, knowing exactly what will come. That's why he was so anxious. He knew he's going to die. He knew he's going to suffer everything, the scourging, the crowning with thorns, the crucifixion. And nevertheless, he remained faithful, mild, He was brave in this moment, and he was courageous going through this, so not letting himself be ruled out by fear. And this is the redemption for Adam, as Mary's attitude of letting herself be given what she desired was a redemption for Eve, for Eve's original sin. So for us women, it was Jesus going through this anxiety and the crucifixion and everything in order to redeem the cowardice of man. So in short, Eve wants to take everything in her hands. Mary lets herself be given a gift. Adam is silent and cowardly in the face of danger of life and thus brings death into the world, whereas Jesus remains courageous even in the face of an incredibly brutal death and thus gives the resurrection. That's very important to know. Now I want to just go on to the follow-up, so the curse for women and the curse for men, which I think is totally important, especially nowadays. I think nowadays it's so obvious seeing this more than ever, I think. So the first thing was, I will read it out before I say anything about it, because I think it's easier. So we know already they took the fruit, they ate from it, and and then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves a loincloth. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and hid myself." He said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave to me and to be with me, she gave me fruit of the tree and I ate." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent deceived me and I ate." The Lord God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." To the woman he said, "I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary, or in some translations, towards your husband, and he shall rule over you." And to Adam he said, "Because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of whom I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return." The man called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. And the Lord God made for Adam and for his wife garments of skins and clothed them. So the first thing that happens is that it's always the other who is to blame. The man blames the woman because he took it from her. The woman blames the serpent. The serpent cannot blame anyone else. So, because there was no one else involved. So, but in fact, and this is a thing that everyone, I'm sure every one of us knows this, when have a problem, we always search someone to blame for instead of ourselves. So first of all, and especially in a relationship, of course, perfect for a relationship, but the other one is the one who has a problem. I'm never the problem. My issues are surely never the problem, because when I'm with myself, I'm so wonderful. But when there is another one, then suddenly there are problems. So the first sin, or the first curse, is that we started. So of course, the first thing is that that they realize that they are naked. So you all know the catechesis about the original nakedness. I'm sure I don't need to go further, but the gaze towards the other one changed um, into a gaze of using the other instead of giving, of receiving the other as a gift and being self a gift to the other. So this is part one. This is in fact the first thing that happened. The next thing is that they both started blaming each other. And this is till now, because it's always the other one that is, because everything that I do, of course, is out of pure love. It's you who is evil, I mean, that's what you tend to hear, but in fact, we have, and I think therefore confession is a very good tool to learn this, that very often we are to blame and not the other one. And maybe it's easier for the other one if we take on our part, because someone has to start. And it's a very interesting thing that in a relationship, when someone starts to apologize in order, because the one understands that there is a part in his that is to blame, it's much easier for the other one to apologize as well. But when you start in an attitude of blaming the other for what he's doing, because it hurt you, it's always the other one. But maybe it's not the other one. Maybe it's you. It's the way you perceived the action that he did because of your background story. So, and the other one never meant it this way. Happens very often, I think, in most cases. So I think this is something that we really have to also have in mind. Then I want to come to the one thing that really, um, really captured my attention when I read what the curse for the woman, or let's say the responsibility that follows up due to what she did, was that I surely multiply your pain in childbearing, and pain you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be contrary to your husband. In German, and also in ancient Greek, it's more like your desire is towards your husband, and he shall rule over you. And John Paul II points it out very wonderfully that this doesn't means patriarchy, but more a thing that happened, a shift that happened in the heart of the woman. Because before this, the desire of the woman was to be wise, was towards God. Due to the sin that she decided to take it in her own hands, and she gave it to her husband, who just listened, said nothing. Because he could have said, nice fruit, nice idea, but maybe it's not a good idea. Could have been one sentence, but he said nothing. But nevertheless, he's not more to blame than she. So she decided to take it in her own hands, and the reaction, the responsibility that she has to take on from this time is that in our women's heart, we always have to fight for God to be on the first place, and not that man is on the first place. So we have this tendency, and this is life old wisdom from generations, in fact, already, and seen in the Bible, that we women tend to take our personal value from men, from either the status of man. I mean, I just, there are women who always search for rich men, not every woman, but there is this tendency. There are women who want to have a man who has got a good career on one hand and so on. So this is one part of this, not the only one. The other one is that women, we have to fight for it to uh, not to, especially in the beginning when we would tend to fall in love, um, not to expect things from man that are expected from God. We tend to put man on a throne, either obviously or pervertedly, like modern feminism. I think in modern feminism, where it's so obvious, this thing, in a perverted way, because they have this longing towards man, in a way, this desire, in a perverted way, because they want to be like man. But why don't modern feminists, I mean the liberal, those very left feminists, who like Judith Butler, for example, and a well-known name, that the best thing is to be homosexual, a lesbian and so on, and men should be there just for the sperm in order to have children, but nevertheless they should go away. So this is always a perverted way of putting man on the throne, because in fact what they want, when you see what happened with first feminism and now it developed into this gender ideology, what they want is to make out of us women better men, in a way, instead of appreciating what is a woman and what is like typical, or like, I mean, take the stereotype woman, but in order to be proud of womanhood, because it's a wonderful thing how God created us women, and he loves us so much, that he even made it made it possible for us women to give birth, to give life. I mean, this is a big value that we got, and it's very interesting in that it's so perverted that many feminists don't, you know underestimate motherhood as a part of femininity, a part of being a female, of being a woman, and this is very, and I think this really shows how much this tendency, I mean, this is a perverted way, but there is such a big tendency, and this is also, I think, a problem in modern dating, and also in a lot of marriages, why they break down, is because the woman expects things of her husband or future husband or man, that she's dating, maybe, that only God can give her, and that it's not the man is not a place to find this desire to be fulfilled. He can help fulfilling, but he's not the one who's going to fulfill. And I think this is important to know for us women, but it's also important to know for men, because I think that some things, like, specificalities, like this ghosting thing in dating, where first the man pursues a woman totally and suddenly he stops totally. I think this is very often a moment where the woman starts shifting the place of God and the man. And when she starts expecting from the man something that only can God give her. On the other hand, one thing would be, and I think this is a good tip for also for men who are married or want to enter into marriage, is to understand this a tendency of the heart of woman. And when they feel that the woman is going to develop in this way, that he takes her on the hand and moves her back towards to God, or maybe talks to her, I have this impression that you're putting me on a place that is too much for me. And I think this is okay. And I think this is necessary, because sometimes we women don't get this at the moment when this happens, and I think this could also be a nice way to help the woman to really be careful that God is in first place and the husband is in the second place. And although I know that a lot of men at first like it when they are on the first place, a little bit, but I mean, there is a over the top. So I think this is very important to know. And this is also the way how men rule over us, So now the thing that captured me from Adam's responsibility, that he had to take on due to the original sin, is that what I observed and get to know is that men have this big tendency to take their value out of their career, out of their work. And the thing is, what the man is for the woman is the career or the work for the man. So they have the tendency to to because it is hard to gain their bread and so on, for existence and everything, and what is said there, they have this tendency to overvalue work. And also from this suicide part, it's known very much for psychologists that men normally, most reasons for men to kill themselves are when they somehow are fired, or there happens something that really somehow destroyed their career. This is really the greatest burden for men if they have no work, if they lost their career somehow. That is the hardest part for men. And this is because they take their value out of career. So the problem for men that they have to cope with is to take their value out of what God is telling to them and not out of their career. And this is very, very important, especially for men who have a big career, because it's not easy to cope with this tendency. And a lot of marriages and a lot of families break down due to this tendency. And so the thing is, this is a vice versa. So I think it's very important that when a man has a wife who tells him always, I feel so alone because he always work, that maybe he should take it more seriously than he thinks, in order to think about, okay, stop. When I work so much that I cannot make a break one day in a week, maybe I overwork myself. Because, Jesus always said the Sabbath is for man, not for God. God doesn't need a Sabbath, he loves it, but he loves celebrating. We have a God who says that in eternity we are going to celebrate a big wedding feast. So we really have someone who really loves celebrating. And I have been at an Arab wedding once when I was 19. I was invited. This is a celebration. This is a big celebration. It takes some days, yeah. So that's not done with one day. So yeah, so this is what we are going to expect in heaven: singing, dancing, probably drinking, as he said he loves wine. So there will be a lot of wine. So it will be a very happy feast in eternity with God. So And when a man always works, how shall he start being prepared for this big celebration if he never tried to celebrate on this earth? I mean, this is now a very in a funny way, put in a funny way, but yeah, I think this is something that when a woman, and because women are very aware of this part in the tendency of man, that they suffer a lot, of course also because of the desire towards men, but not just. I'm sure there is also a point that is not just because of this, because they realize that he is putting career first to God and family, and in a good and a healthy order, in the heart of a woman and a man is first God, second husband or wife, third children, family, the relationships, and the career is more a means to an end than um the life-giving thing. I mean, it gives life because you have to be nourished, but God is a God of relationships. So first is important for everyone, for a healthy regulation and a healthy heart, to put the relationships in one's life first, and work secondary. And there is something that most men don't understand. When a man um, really tries to be there for his wife, which means in a way that she needs, and she has to figure out how this is, because every woman is different. Not every woman needs to have so much time. Some women only want to have good quality time. Doesn't mean to be a big amount of time. Some women want to have more amount of time. Doesn't need to be so much quality time. So I mean, this is every couple has to figure it out a little themselves, because there are different characters. You cannot overput this, but in a way there is a saying, happy wife, happy life. It's not untrue. So when a man knows the woman has this tendency that she is going to put him on a place that is not too much. First, it is good to help her to put God first. But secondary, it's also good to maybe find a balance, accepting this and helping her, not just in throwing her away, but really taking time with her. Because if he takes time with her, she can let him go to his career. And this is then a good balance. And then it's a little bit like the man is like a, how do you say, like the guidance that the woman um, um, is, that he leads the woman towards God, and she takes God on first place and him on second place. Whereas the woman is the guidance that the man takes God on first place, and not the career on first place and the career on second, or as not as the fulfillment of everything, but as a means of an end, and not as the sense of life having a career. So this is it now for today. So now I think I'm open for questions, and I think our a little discussion about what do you think about it. Have you experienced this in your life, in your relationships? Would be interesting to know. Or also maybe you have also some tips how to help to regulate this. And yeah, so So, oh yeah, this is a wonderful picture that you posted. Who posted it? It was Tom, yeah. This is a wonderful picture. I love this, yeah. Maybe we should, for the audience, add, maybe you can share your screen for a moment in order for this picture. If you can, if not, then it's a wonderful icon.
I'm not seeing the picture.
It's in the chat. When you go to the chat,
Oh, okay.
there is a link for a picture. Tom posted it. Yeah.
Let's see, I got to share screen now.
Yeah. So
Oh.
hi, Michelle.
Now I'm on. I'm totally lost.
Okay, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't work, we can share it later on in the group, maybe. Or Tom, you can share it then later.
I think Tom should be able to share it.
Yeah. So, any questions?
If anybody wants to put it in the comment section on Facebook Live, I'll be able to relate that.
So, questions.
If anybody wants.
Well, I don't.
Michelle?
Yeah, Michelle. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Well, I don't really have any questions except that, I'm at that age where a lot of people are, they've had like long marriages and all of a sudden they decide to divorce. And that's not me. But I have people in my life like that. And, if so much of this is helps to explain a lot of sort of what has gone on in terms of bad habits in a marriage for so long. And especially, the work and attention issue, especially in a long marriage where, a man just sort of slogs through his career trying to keep up and up and up with stuff, and then the woman who, she just stopped taking care of the guy, because his career, it was all about his career. He works a lot and all this type of thing. And she's just taking care of the kids, Anyways, it explains a lot. It helps me at least to, counsel people.
Yeah, I think this is a part that many really underestimate. It's I mean, my parents are also one of those marriages where my father made a big career and my mother always worked as well, but she raised us children. But our family broke a little due to the decisions of my father concerning his career. And he always made it in his mind like he has to do this in order to nourish the family. And it helped me a lot understanding this part in order to understand my father. He didn't mean it mean. He really tried to find a good way, but it also had something to do with his father and his grandparents who always emphasized career and only appreciated their children when they made career. So this is a thing also very often in families, that the men want their fathers to be proud of them. And as men have this tendency to take the value out of career, it is very common that, of course, the fathers only appreciate their sons when they or make a big career. And as long as they didn't have this big career, they seem to not value their sons. I mean, the good thing is that my father worked on this by himself somehow, also through the problems with my brothers. who a little bit tried to live it differently because they suffered so much out of it. And my father also learned a little bit more and more to show my brothers that he's proud of them, even if they don't have made a overly big career, although one of my brothers did. But I really always, when I talk with my father about my brothers, and I'm very happy that somehow I got a position in my family that my parents even seek advice. They come to me and ask me for advice in coping with my brothers. So, which is very nice on one hand. On the other hand, I'm the daughter and the sister, so this is a little bit hard as well. But I realized that, yeah, he worked on it, and it's also wonderful to see as a daughter that you have a father who somehow changed perception, and I have a mother who's very wise, who's very who somehow got her freedom with it, and he knows that this is his tendency, and she accepted it. So that's how my mother coped with it. But nevertheless, they are now in pension, and my father still works, but she also works. And one thing was very interesting, because this is already, I think, 20 years ago, when my mother suddenly came to me, and she had a kind of, in an association, she became the president, and she made some events that suddenly my father helped her with coping these events. So this was one thing that was and my mother came to me and said, I never thought that your father is going to support me with this work when I have to present it. He's sitting down with me, going through all the speeches and everything. I never thought he's going to do this. So she was really surprised. So I think maybe it's also good to find a way that the husband in a way can help the woman in her, let's say, job in a way. So I think this is also because I think it's wise also to find, as I mean, this is what we women can do. Men are different. They have other strategies that they can do, but somehow it's also a thing that maybe we women also should try to be a little bit wise when we understand this tendency, in order to maybe take this tendency and flip it around. So engaging in his career, helping maybe him in his career, or that he can help the woman in her career. So in a way that to be supportive, finding out how this could be. No, but it's always a question of the man and also of the woman. So yeah.
Barbara, you beautifully described how men and women should guide each other in a marriage. And I wish I had seen this before I got divorced, but there's this marriage triangle where if both the husband and the wife draw closer to God, they draw closer to themselves as well. And that's what makes the marriage work. It's just such a simple visual representation of what you just described.
Yeah. Yeah, marriage is not an easy thing. I think it can be a very wonderful thing, but it can also be a really horrible thing. But one thing, and this is maybe not the theology of the body, but it's a psychological fact that is very interesting, that it's better for a man to be married, even if it's a bad marriage, than not to be married. But for a woman, it's better to be single than to be in a bad marriage. Because somehow God made it this way that man can, um, and there is one thing, because my father is an ENT, so ears, nose, and throat, a medical, and he's he once told me a very funny phenomenon, that with the time of marriage, the man tend to become deaf for the higher sequences of the voice of the woman. So when she's quarreling, he's becoming deaf to those sequences. So that when he's old, he doesn't even hear it. So I mean, this is a funny story, but I think this that shows that man made man in a way that they can cope with their women. And on the other hand, I think what is very important also for women to know is that men have this, I mean, what I realized is normally, so the man can then please say if it's true or not, yeah, but normally I realized that men normally want to make their wives happy. But the problem is that normally they don't know how, because we women are not every woman is the same. So there is not always, what is going to make one woman happy, maybe won't make another woman happy. So, and we women have the tendency when we fall in love with a man, that we see the good parts in him, and we oversee the bad parts that are there as well, because we see somehow, and I would say we see somehow what God laid into this man. And then many women try to change their husbands, which is generally a bad idea, because it happens, but never really in a way that they want. And they want to change the man for developing the good parts, and that they go step back from their bad parts. But the way that women do this is normally by quarreling or nagging or so. And the problem is that then the men know exactly what they shouldn't do, but they don't know what they should do. I mean, they know the bad part, but they don't know the good part. So there is a saying: if you want a man to be like he is, you should nag around. If you want to change him, you should tell him what he's good, or what he's doing good. So, and maybe complimenting him. And I think this is something that we women really have to learn, especially in our times, because it's very easy to nag someone and to tell him what he's, or criticizing or quarreling. But it's not so easy to tell a man what he's good at, what he's doing, what we see that is good in this man, And I think this is something that we women really have to learn, especially in our times, to tell men around us what we appreciate in them. And this is a learning for us women, really. So I think so. So now, Tom, Ed, what do you think about this? I would like to know a man's opinion, as I'm a woman, I can... Tom, you're experienced.
Yes, I was smiling as you were talking. The saying is that when a man marries a woman, he doesn't want her to change at all. Whereas, like you said, it's different for the woman, and that is a source of tension. Yes, it definitely gets old if we are the source of every bad thing that happens, even when we're not.
Normally, you're not always the source of bad things. No, so it's only when you don't take enough time.
Yes, yes.
That's more than, but it's not because you're the source of bad things, but because you're the source of good things that is lacking, you know.
Yeah, so
And
being just portrayed that way, where you can like never do anything right, that gets frustrating pretty quickly.
yeah, I'm sure. But I think it's also sometimes, I think we women don't even realize this. I found it so funny because I once made a video when because my mother had an operation on her shoulder, so she couldn't make her hair. And so my father decided doing her hair, and he you know, he sang while doing, and so had a lot of fun doing it. And
Mm.
and she always, no, not here, no, this has to be a little bit different.
Yes.
And this is so. And then afterwards, and I made a video because I thought, no, I really have to show my mother. and then I showed it to her mother, and she said, I quarrel so much. No, that's not me. That cannot be. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, we women very often do not even realize that we do this. So, and I think, but it's, you know. I think it's very important that it's, I think what my parents do very wisely, because in fact they have a good marriage, and I think they have of course, no marriage is totally healthy, but they somehow get along with each other very good. And what I realized what they do is that my mother never speaks bad outside of marriage, so which means
Mm.
outside of family, about my father. So whenever she's around with friends, she always says how wonderful he is, what he's doing now, what he perceived now, and so on and so on. So this attitude of speaking well of the other outside of home. And I think, and my father, of course, knows this because, of course, the friends of my mother are very nice towards him, because of course we then start reacting towards the other in the way that we heard from our friends. That's natural. Whereas some friends of my mother always speak bad about their husbands, and my parents say, no, really, we cannot invite them so much, because you know they always treat their husbands badly.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
But they are in one tone in this. So and I think this is also, and another thing is that my father started, after 25 years of marriage, suddenly he started at every festivity to say thank you to my mother, that she always supported him, held his back, that he could do career and so on. So he really started publicly praising my mother. And it was also for her a very big surprise, and for me as well as daughter, to see this, that my father suddenly, starts gets out of praises for my mother. it's nice to hear, also as a daughter. So
Yeah, the way they supported each other, that must have been a beautiful example for you.
yeah.
I also would chime in that couples need to be careful not to talk negatively to their children about each other.
Yes. Although you can cope.
I think that's a huge weakness.
Yeah, I think, it always depends on the situation, I think, because normally we children also know the bad habits of our parents, and I think it's a question of how you talk about it. I think if parents would do as if they wouldn't perceive those bad habits, I think for children, as they know their parents very often, but much better, sometimes even as they know each other, I have the impression. Or maybe also understand parents sometimes better than they think. But I think it's a question of how you do it. So if you see there is really a bad habit that is really hurtful for the children or for herself, or and this is obvious because children are not blind, I think you should stick to the truth. But the question is always how. You can say the truth in a loving way, and then or you can say it in a very harsh way, and in a way that the other one is standing there as the evil guy altogether. I think it's always good to find a good balance in order to, I mean, one say for good, I mean, it's not a good relationship when you never quarrel, because normally then you're hiding something from yourself, and so you're not giving yourself totally. So this is not a good relationship where it's only harmony, because usually you lie to each other without maybe perceiving it, and this will also end in a divorce probably. But it's always the balance. And one say, I think very good marriages have a percentage of 1 to 5, 1 quarrel, and 5 and 4 wonderful things together. So I think it's always the question of balance, because we are in this fallen world. The kingdom of God is already here, but it is also not here. So it's always then here when we invite it to come. But the kingdom of heaven is not. It's not that you never quarrel, or that you never say, or that you don't see also the hard things. But the kingdom of heaven is that you see them and that you forgive them, and that you, in a way, let's say, that you try to love out the best of the other. And but this doesn't, this has to, I think this is always depending on the character. If you're very temperamentful, if you have a big temperament, then this will be in a different style. And there are people that when they are very emotionally, then it's like a storm, and afterwards they forget that they even had the storm. And there are people who can cope with this mechanism, and there are people who can't cope. So if you know that this person is like this, and okay, first thing is the storm, and then you have to wait till this tempest is gone, and then you can talk with the person quietly about this issue. Then in a way it's also a thing that you have to start accepting this, because this is a character trait, and it can, of course, happen that with the time it gets a little bit easier. But maybe it also gets easier because you understand that when this tempest comes, you wait till it's gone and then you talk, because there won't come out anything useful when you start quarreling when this tempest comes. So I mean, that's also a question of getting to know the other, accepting the other how he is or she is, and trying to cope with what is there. And with the time, it can reduce itself. Maybe it gets harder. I don't know. If it's really hard, take help. take professional help. I think this is absolutely worth it. Going through having a heart problem, then that you really go to a priest maybe, or a psychologist, in order to ask them to accompany you, find a better way, and start when it's still possible to change something, and not when everything is already too much. I think this is very important. Yeah. Anything else? Any questions, comments? Who is the 1GMCOZY whatever? Would be interesting. Oh, you have to put on the micro, Michelle.
Yeah, no, I don't know who that is. That's all I said. That's all I said. I just have to say that I thought that this was very I liked a lot of what you had to say, particularly about, after the fall, and about women, and how they idolize men, and because that has always kind of stumped me when I try to explain it to people. And I thought it was very insightful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So anyways, I'm supposed to be at another meeting, but anyways, it's getting crowded on internet.
Yeah.
So and I missed your first one, but I assume it's recorded, right?
Yeah, you can listen to it, I think, on Facebook still, like the other talk before. And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So have a nice meeting, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We should be able to have this.
Hi, Ed.
Yeah, we should be able to have a YouTube page we're going to have eventually too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've been every once in a while I run into a lot of I get very, very busy, and I start to miss, and then also the time change messed me up, because Arizona is not on is on Pacific time. We're not on Mountain time. So it's a 2-hour difference, which changes my whole life around.
Yeah,
So,
it's 6 hours difference from Vienna, I'm in Austria, in Europe.
Yeah. But the world changes more regularly. Arizona is not, because we don't go on daylight savings time. So we don't change with the whole world. The whole world changes, but we don't. So it's just, it gets confusing.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So we have to recalculate in our brain everything. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to try and get the other meeting. So
okay.
It was very enlightening. I liked it very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So, bye.
Thank you, Barbara and Ed. I really enjoyed that. Beautiful and inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I just need to figure out how to get off.
So, and a 1GMCO. Yeah. Say something. Hi. I hear you a little bit hard, but go on.
I'm from Papua New Guinea. This is my first time to be on this show. I joined in quite rather late, so I sort of just sat and listened. I'm blessed to have you present the topic, and I'm still, it's my first session. And so I'm very much listening and still contribute because I'm still getting the hang of Zoom. So thank you so much for your presentation. I think in the next show I will contribute. As it is, I'm listening to everything that you've shared, um, um, especially with the Adam Eve concept. It was quite new for me, and because I started late, I couldn't really pick up what you were saying. So I really just listened to see what you all were sharing. And so what I noticed, I didn't really have I didn't have my name on because I'm still new. I've got to work on this. But I'm enjoying your presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening. So then I think this was it for today.
Yes, and Barbara, by chance, do you Nick, or is there any intentions to do more?
Yeah, wait. I'm sorry.
Is there any intention for you to do more of these?
I mean, I do have my YouTube channel where I put on very often also talks with Nick, you
Okay.
know, where we talk about all those different parts of the theology of the body for itself.
Okay.
And yeah, if you say you want to have me for another talk, I can very much, of course. Just
Well, and maybe it'd be good. I'll mention to Nick for him to post something about the talks that the two of you
I
have.
think we already posted. So very often they are bilingual because I translate in German. So
Mhm.
of course you hear me talking twice. English and then German. But yeah, and I have my, you know, but this is of course in German then. So for
Yeah.
those who speak German, I have because I thought there is a lot about theology of the body in English, but there
Mhm.
is not so much in German. And we need this in the German speaking countries because most people don't really get what it's about, the theology of the body. They totally reduce it to something that it's not.
Yeah.
And this is a big problem, as everyone knows, that the Catholic Church, especially in Germany, not so hard in Austria, but some little overlaps to Austria as well. But the German Church has big issues, really big issues. And I think everyone in the world knows this, and they are very proud and think that they know how life works out, or church works out, or should be. Um, and this is a big problem. I mean, Austria is a little different,
Mhm.
but as we speak the same mother tongue, of course, we get news and we get things a little bit, and yeah.
And we get some reports that some of what goes on in Germany could cause a schism. Or,
Surely will.
yeah.
It what's going on in Germany is yeah, it's like, you know, very much in I mean, it's a question also from the history, you know. In Germany there were the Protestants, Protestant movements that started, and I'm sure from the wisdom of God it was somehow needed in a way, because due to this separation, there was a focus more on the Bible itself, to understand that the Bible is still in the focus, not just the tradition, but that the tradition is necessary in order to help to understand the Bible. But it's good to know the Bible on one hand. And on the other hand, the sacrament of the Eucharist was emphasized like this much more.
Mhm.
So otherwise, I think uh, out of this schism came this appreciation for the Eucharist. I
Mhm.
think because there was someone who put it in question. And in fact, an interesting thing, it wasn't Luther, it was Calvin and Zwingli who put it in questions.
Right.
So Luther really believed in the Eucharist. And he was an ordained priest. So,
Mhm.
but I mean, I have my own interpretation a little bit, because of course, I mean, there is no Eucharist in the Protestant churches.
Mhm.
They have a symbol for the Eucharist because they have no ordained priests, and this is something that we need to be aware of as well, because Protestants are they have their treasure, which they got because we missed putting the emphasis on it. And at the time where Luther was, and Zwingli and Calvin, the Catholic Church was also in a big trouble, especially in Rome, with the Borgia Pope, who really made like a red light district out of the Vatican. So I mean, that's for a pope, you know. And
Yeah.
so I mean, you see, it was necessary in a way, because there was a big problem in the Catholic Church in order to put things in, or in to correct things. It would have been nice if it would have been able to do without a schism with the Protestants. It wasn't possible at that time due to both characters, let's say. Um, and in a way, I think. And then all this Protestantism developed like it developed now. And I think the problem is that Germany is very much influenced by the actual Protestantism, not by the former Protestantism. And there are good parts in Protestantism and there are bad parts. And the problem of the Protestantism is that they have nothing against, the ghost of times, of the spirit of times. And they try to have a church which is very much influenced with the spirit of times, due to the scandals that we have and had in church of sexual scandals and so on, and which are not good at all. The thing is that uh, I mean, reducing the sexual morality in order to cope with scandals that were scandals because people didn't live it first, and would be scandals even with the modern sexuality moral of the world, and then changing it in order to say then that, I mean, it's um like harassing someone is evil, but as I cannot change myself because I'm so sinful, I say now that harassing is totally okay, because if it's okay for you, I mean, who am I to judge? uh, I mean, this is and also and this makes the next scandal, what the bishops don't see, that in fact, and they say, okay, celibacy is the problem, so the priest should be able to marry. Okay, nice. And then they say, yeah, I mean, they have to cope with the sexuality, and there are women. I mean, this is a reduction of the value of women
Mhm.
in a way that they say, they don't realize what they are saying, yeah. But in fact, they are saying that women are there for the sexual desires of man, and so now they have to live with it in a way, yeah. So no, no, no.
Now, it's sad that they fall to that default position that the problem lies in something other than people and results of original sin. Say that we need to change the tradition because of how people haven't lived out the faith. We're always going to have people who are sinful.
I
And
mean, we are all sinful. I
yeah,
mean,
and marriage is not a place where, those kind of things all of a sudden disappear.
yeah, I mean, the problem is that uh, they don't understand it. I mean, also in marriage, there are times where you cannot come together due to different aspects. I mean, health aspects, I mean, and then you say, okay, yeah, so the woman cannot be there for the man because after birth, giving birth, you might be so, let's say, ruined due to this heart thing. I mean, physically, that it's not wise from a medical level to sleep together, then you say, yeah, okay, the man, but he has his lust. I mean, as if a woman doesn't have lust, I mean, first of all. And second is, um, yeah, he has to then live it out. I mean, the problem of harassment and sexual problems is because you you didn't mature your sexuality.
Yeah, there's child abusers amongst those who are married.
Even more than in priests, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Even
So
more. Yeah. So and that's what they don't get. So there are more child abuses under married in married couples than in priests. And so those priests who are child abusers probably would be even child abusers when they would be married. And maybe the problem, is that every one of us, I mean, it's a work every one of us has to do to cope with your own sexual desire and to find a way to live it in a yeah, to accept that it is here and to let it be matured. uh,
I don't know if it's the case in Germany as it is in the United States, but in our child raising and our education system, the idea of developing virtue is not emphasized. And instead, so much emphasis is on free choice, which is license and do what you want instead of proper understanding of freedom being something that we develop over time as we become virtuous people and we make the right choices.
yeah, I mean, I think the problem in German-speaking countries or Europe are even harder. I'm not sure if it's harder than I cannot say, but I mean, I had sexual education in a way that now I know it was better than it is now. Let's say more harmless than it is now, but I think now knowing from the theology of the body point of view, I think there are really big parts that I would have liked to know then, which I didn't get. And I think sexual education per se is not a problem. Question is how.
Mhm.
Because it's also unwise not to telling the people how babies come together and how this works. Also I think you should also uh, explain more the medical part, because I really perceive that now everyone knows how it works and how to have contraceptions and so on, but from the physical medical point of view, they have no clue. I mean, this is really, I think, where I really think, okay, so now you know everything, but you still have no clue how this works, the system per se. So I mean, this is missed sexual education that I think, because this is what I think. But I think that it's normal that you have a sexual desire. This is something that needs first, of course. I mean, that's also what John Paul II says. In fact, it's normal and it's a good thing, because it gives a certain drive. The question is how you cope with it.
Mhm.
And there is also from this, and I don't even need only to go from to the theology. I just need to take sexual medicine. Everyone knows if you don't always go after your lust is going to reduce it per se more and more. So, which means that when you have lust, you have to, or a moment where you are very, let's say, feel lustful in a way. I think it's important to find a way to let's say not to suppress it, because this would lead to things that now happened, in church, but not only in church, because harassment and abuse and so on are not only church topics. They are very much in everywhere. Um, so saying it's only in the church is stupid. It's everywhere. But the thing is, not suppressing it, but let's say more in an attitude being thankful that you have this possibility, in fact, but not going after it. But in a way enjoying that you have this feeling, but without going after it. And this is the way, I think, also I realized it when you fall in love with someone and you don't go after it, your sexual desire, but you also don't suppress it. It starts just bodily, let's say, but with time it goes on, this desire to more, it changes into love. It changes into an emotional desire for the other one, but also when you don't go after it, it's somehow like the experience of love with each other is gets matured, and I think it deepens love. And I think this is the mechanism that many don't realize. It's like this, it's very modern now, this intimate fasting. So it's also kind of fasting. I mean, it is a sexual fasting, but I mean, it's easier to sexual fast than to make intermittent fasting, because without eating, you will die after 60 days. But without having a sexual relationship, you won't die even after a lifetime. So, I mean, this, you don't need to go after it in order to survive. That's the thing. It's a good thing because it bonds people together, especially in marriage. It should make the love bigger. But I think it's also a question of, because I mean, there is a saying, and I think it's very much true. I once heard a men tend to fall in love with a woman where they have this feeling they could sleep with her, but not sleep with her. But women fall in love with a man by sleeping with them. I mean, that's true in a way. That's true. Women tend to fall in love with men, and this is why sometimes women, when they sleep with someone that they just met, they totally are over the flip in love with them, although they don't know them. And then when they separate and years later, they think themselves, what the hell came into me that I fell in love with this person? I mean, and this is the thing. Whereas men, normally when they get to know a woman, they sleep with them immediately. I mean, normally the love is not so big. But when they have to wait, they know that they have a chance, but they don't sleep with her. Then they tend to fall in love. So that's what I heard, which is very interesting in knowing this tendency as well.
Well, and I think where feminism led women astray was by denying that they hold that key, by not giving in to a sexual union right away, is what prevents the man from having to go through that maturing.
Yeah. but also the woman. Also, woman matures. It's not just. I mean, we also have this desire, of course, yeah, because it's a wonderful thing, and I think it's for a woman, it's even maybe it's more, because we are normally more in a unity with emotionally and bodily than men. Men can separate it better than we women. So this experience is more altogether, and spiritual. And I think the thing is that it's also important to have the spiritual aspect of giving oneself. Because I know I didn't live this all my life. Yeah, I had a time before I decided changing my life when I was young. I mean, it's very long ago, but when I was young, and I really thought really fall into the trap of modern society, modern thinking. So I know what I'm talking about. I know both parts. And I realized that one thing is, for example, that a woman, if she's really honest with herself, feels in the sexual intercourse if the man is giving himself or if it's just a mechanic because he wants his own fulfillment. And this is the difference. It feels totally different. And one thing is really horrible, and you think, oh my God, when it's over. And I'm sorry to be so plain. And the other thing is really a fulfillment also of the soul. But then when it breaks up, it's really hurting a lot. When this relationship then breaks up, it's like death, in a way. And so I think it's really necessary to really to mature in one's own sexuality by not giving in to the sexual desire, not with the other one, but also not with oneself, let's say, because you take yourself the chance that your sexuality is going to mature. And having a mature sexuality, I think, is a wonderful thing, because then you are really more free in choosing.
It's unfortunate that this kind of information doesn't get down to young people in their early teens and stuff before they become active and pay the consequences for their
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. On the other hand, I heard that now there is a big tendency in the young people where they have big forums where they say how to stop masturbating because they don't want to anymore, and how to be freed by pornography, because they realize because I mean, this is the thing, the theology of the body, and what John Paul II said is nothing just from somewhere thinking about this, but it's really really down to the ground, and that you can really I mean, everyone that is a little conscious about oneself or starts to mature at a certain point, you feel, no, this is not good. So we have this knowledge somehow in our hearts, even if television, politics, and social media tries to or parts of social media tries to silence this voice, but it's innate in us. We are made like this. It's not we are really made like this. And because we are made like this, even people that are not religious feel that this is not a good idea. So, and I think this is something that we can go really out with this consciousness in the world, into the world, that we know when we talk with people, when we listen, that we hear these tendencies, and that we see this. So I think this is important. Yeah. Okay, so then I would say we will.
Yeah, this isn't how we anticipated it to begin and to end, but I really want to thank you
Welcome.
Your insights have been a real blessing for anybody who watches this.
Hopefully.
Yes.
So
And
thank you.
it will be out there for people to see.
Watch.
Yeah, and we'll try to promote it, because maybe there were some people who missed out with the beginning that we had because of not connecting. I was kind of disappointed that Father didn't join us again. He might have had something else, or he might have been trying to get on in the beginning when we weren't up.
Yeah, I think he wrote me something.
Okay.
I just have to see. Yeah, he said, yeah, he has a school Easter blessing meeting. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
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 But doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. And oh, be blessed.
You
And
also, and isn't it amazing what Zoom offers?
yeah,
And
that's true.
even though this was probably COVID related,
Yeah.
I am so happy to have experienced what you've had to say and got to meet you a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it very much having, yeah, this talk. And, you know, it's also good for me to rethink it. And
Well, God bless you in all the adventures that you have, or all the investments you are making with your time and energy.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye.